to make our 5 grid filet block, I've already started with my chain 18. So because we have 5 blocks, what we would do in each block is 3 stitches. So we chain 3 for each block, so that would be 15, and then we chain another 3 as our foundational turning chain. So I've chained 18, and I'm going to begin working row 1 of our grid in the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see on the grid that our first block is a filled block. So I'll work 3 double crochet starting in that 4th block. One, next stitch, 2, and 3. I'm using a slightly bigger hook than you're using because I want you to be able to see my stitches. So there we have 3 double crochet is our first block of our 5 block grid. The next block is a empty block, so we're going to chain 2, we'll skip 2 chains, and we'll double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Sorry, it's teeny tiny, I'm having trouble holding it. There we go. Now we have our empty block. So the empty block is chain 2, skip 2, and double crochet. Our 3rd block is a filled block, so now we're going to again work 3 double crochets into the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. And now you'll see here when you look at this, don't get confused by your blocks, because your filled block, it's going to look like you have 4 double crochets in your filled block, but really remember this one is left over from the previous empty stitch. So this is the empty stitch, and then these 3 are your filled block, and it's the same with the beginning. So this is your beginning stitch, then your 3 for your filled block. Okay, our 4th block is an empty block, so we'll chain 2, skip 2, and double crochet into that 3rd stitch. And finally, our last block is a filled block, so we'll double crochet into the next 3 stitches. Ooh, this last one's a little tight. There we go. All right, now we have our first 5 blocks worked. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we'll go on to row 2. So remember, when we begin a row, we chain 3, we turn, and then we begin working our grid. So row 2, you'll see on the pattern it's O, X, O, X, O. So the first block is a skipped block. So in that case, we need to chain 2 more. Our block begins not in this first stitch, but in the next 1, 2, we'll double crochet in this 3rd block. 3rd stitch, I'm sorry. Okay, so our beginning open block is worked here. It has our beginning chain that again is not shown on the grid, our open stitch, our open block, whoops, sorry about that. Now we're working an X. So an X is 3 double crochets, and you'll see since this one below, sorry, I need more yarn. When we're working into an open block and we're working a filled block into the open block, we work our stitches right into the around the chain that's worked. We don't have to go into each individual stitch, which actually makes it a lot easier, so you don't have to fight with those chain stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now you see this second block is finished at the same stitch that the second block from the row below is right here. Now we have an O, or an open block, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. You can see that these are stacking up right on top of each other to create our grid. We'll work an X or a filled block into the next one, around the chain, 1, 2, and the last one, the third double crochet gets worked into this double crochet stitch. And our last block is an open block, so we chain 2 and double crochet right into this stitch here. Let me get it. So that's in our turning chain right there. All right, now we have our 2 rows. You see we have an open block, close block, open block, close block, open block. Now I need to undo this knot in my yarn, just make sure I have enough. Do, 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 do. Okay, that should be good. All right, sorry about that. All right, now we're working that middle row of our 5 block, or our 5 grid block. So you'll see the middle row, row 3 is shown as, we'll chain 3 to begin our row, turn, and then we have X5. That means we're going to work 5 filled blocks across our grid. So the first one will work 3 double crochets, 2 into the chain, and the last one into this double crochet here. That's our first block. 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Next one, we'll work into this open chain here. 1 and 2. On the third, we'll work into this last double crochet. Next, 3 more double crochet. Oh. And finally, our last filled block will work into this open stitch here. So we have 1 and 2, and what I like to do is to find that third chain and work the last double crochet into that stitch. Whoops. 1, 2, 3. Just makes it a little more secure. All right, so now we have our, needs to be, I mean, we'll block this in the end, so it'll all work out. But this is our 5X blocks worked together. We have 2 more rows to go. We'll begin our row number 4 with 3 chains. And we have another row of OXOXO. So O is 2 chains and a double crochet, skip 2. Remember, we always skip this first one. Skip 2 and double crochet into this. So it's actually the 4th stitch. Double crochet, X is 3 double crochet, then we have an O, skip 2, double crochet in that 3rd stitch, an X, 1, 2, and 3, and our last stitch is an O. We skip 2 and double crochet in our turning chain. There we go. There we have that. And our last row, 5, we'll chain 3, turn, we'll work a filled block, so into the open chain we work 2 double crochets, and our 3rd double crochet goes in the top of this double crochet. There's an X. Now we'll work an O, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. Then an X, 1, 2, 3, an O, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, and finally, sorry about that, our last stitch, our last block is a filled block, so we work 2 double crochets into the chain and 1 double crochet in that turning chain. Then we would simply finish off and tuck our ends, and we would end up with our little block. Now you can see that this is not completely square, and that happens sometimes. So what we would do is we would wet block it. You see, once I block it, it will be more square, and it'll look just like the grid that we have in our pattern. We have our filled squares, our empty squares, our long filled section, and there we go. There we have our 5-block grid of filet crochet, and now we are filet experts. Thanks for watching.